The governor of São Paulo, Tarcísio de Freitas, made his support for the United States clear in the fight against criminal factions operating in Brazil, causing quite a stir. In Brasília, the allied base of the current Brazilian president went into a general panic at the possibility of a direct rapprochement between São Paulo and the Donald Trump administration.
When a government like the United States begins labeling the Primeiro Comando da Capital as a terrorist group, which they truly are, it becomes easier, the path to cooperation is opened so that we can integrate intelligence, so that we can bring in financial resources, and so that we can fight even more effectively.
Tarcísio made it clear that São Paulo is open to collaborating with the United States Department of War in tackling the Primeiro Comando da Capital and Comando Vermelho. This move exposes an internal political division in the country and puts even more pressure on the federal government, which has been criticized for its lack of strong actions against organized crime. With his historical closeness to the Trump administration, Tarcísio signals that he is willing to support joint operations against the Primeiro Comando da Capital and Comando Vermelho, strengthening the idea that international alliances can be decisive in the fight against organized crime. Tarcísio. This stance, besides causing discomfort for the Brazilian president, highlights the difference in strategies between the state and federal governments, where even the Civil Police Secretary of Rio de Janeiro, Chief Felipe Cury, also reaffirmed his support for the United States. In confronting criminal factions,
Comando Vermelho is no longer just a simple local criminal faction operating here in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Comando Vermelho, today in fact, for some years now, especially since 2020, it has gained significant strength on the national and also international stage. Comando Vermelho today is no longer just a criminal group or just drug traffickers. Comando Vermelho now operates as a cartel with national and transnational activities. In addition, Comando Vermelho has formed alliances. We have evidence of this in the investigation of alliances with the Primeiro Comando da Capital and also with several other criminal factions operating throughout the state, throughout the country, throughout Brazil, throughout our federation. That's why I insist on saying that this is a narco-terrorist group. Vermelho
has gained significant strength. The state of São Paulo faces one of the largest criminal organizations in Latin America, the Primeiro Comando da Capital, on a daily basis. The civil and military police are engaged in a constant fight against organized crime, relying on specialized units and personnel trained for high-risk operations. In the military police, the Rota stands out as an elite unit focused on rapid response and urban combat, and the Grupo de Ações Táticas, which specializes in crisis situations such as kidnappings and bomb disposal. In the civil police, the DOPE, which is the Department of Strategic Police Operations, works on complex investigations and operations against organized gangs, strengthening the direct fight against criminal factions. Given this scenario, Governor Tarcísio de Freitas sees the classification of these organizations as narco-terrorists as a real opportunity to expand the fight and obtain additional resources, including international ones. This classification would allow for greater cooperation with allied countries and access to modern technologies and equipment, strengthening the ability to neutralize the reach of these criminal networks. After all, the Primeiro Comando da Capital and the Comando Vermelho are not limited to the streets. They are also deeply embedded in various sectors of society, including politics and the judiciary, which makes confronting them even more complex and urgent.
There are secret agents of organized crime operating in the legislative branch, in the press.
In politics, that's what I'm talking about here. It has already been the subject of a plea bargain in the Supreme Court, stating that the Primeiro Comando da Capital had a fund of 100 million reais that it managed, to which city councillor or mayoral candidate should be supported anyway.
With this stance, Tarcísio aims to make São Paulo a reference in the fight against organized crime, showing that the fight against factions requires not only police force, but also political coordination and international support. The strategy could pave the way for the state to receive investments and external support, raising the level of confrontation and reducing the influence of the factions that have challenged Brazilian public security for decades.
Strategy for external support decades.
The United States decided to step up its fight against the Latin American cartels, mobilizing the Southern Command with operations in the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific. This mobilization involves destroyers, aircraft carriers, maritime patrol aircraft, and state-of-the-art fighter jets, as well as highly trained personnel. In this scenario, a direct connection with the police forces of São Paulo could be strategic, since the state concentrates a large part of the operations against organized crime in Brazil and could benefit from technical and logistical cooperation with the Americans. Paraguay has already authorized the installation of an FBI base in the tri-border area and the entry of American military personnel into its territory, creating a key support point for joint actions. Ecuador has also made progress, signing agreements and starting coordinated operations with the Southern Command. These moves show that the region is increasingly aligning itself with the United States' strategy. With neighbors opening space for foreign forces and joint operations already underway, Brazil has already become the target of specific actions by the United States on its territory. A formal partnership between São Paulo's police forces and the Southern Command could anticipate this scenario, turning the state of São Paulo into a protagonist in the fight against drug trafficking and ensuring access to resources, technology, and international intelligence. Tarcísio de Freitas has been getting closer and closer to the United States, and an important milestone in this relationship happened in 2025 when he met with Gabriel Escobar, the American chargé d'affaires in Brazil, to discuss the so-called tariff issue. At that time, the federal government was showing inefficiency in dealing with the issue, and Tarcísio took the opportunity to strengthen bilateral ties directly with Washington. This move opened the way for more agile and pragmatic negotiations, putting São Paulo in a prominent position on the international stage. The stance of Tarcísio de Freitas and the Secretary of Civil Police of Rio de Janeiro shows that there is a growing demand for strategic alignment with the United States in the fight against the factions that terrorize Brazil. The United States Department of War, under the command of Pete Hegseth, is already prepared to take action, and, faced with regional pressure and the cooperation established with neighboring countries, Brazil is at the center of a decisive scenario. Whether the Brazilian president wants it or not, something impactful is about to happen and could redefine the way the country deals with organized crime and drug trafficking on its territory. Leave your opinion here in the comments about the actions of the governor of São Paulo, who has been working behind the scenes in support of Donald Trump's government.